Something that I've always admired about the brand Fiat is their ability to have fun. Customers don't buy Fiat 500s whether they're electric or combustion because they're the most affordable, nor because they're the most luxurious or come with the most amount of equipment. They buy them because they have personality and they have it in bucket loads. And one of the ways that Fiat has always done a good job of injecting personality is by releasing limited edition versions of their vehicles, often with fashion brands. Of course, Fiat take their Italian heritage very seriously, and fashion and Italian come hand in hand. That's why they released a limited edition Fiat 500 Gucci, which was very, very cool, and I'm pretty sure as desirable now as it was all the way back when it was first released. You also had the diesel edition of the Fiat 500. That came with denim seats on the inside. I would have loved to have seen that. And of course, you also had the Ferrari edition Fiat 500. I would have loved to have had one of those on my drive. And I'm really pleased to see that continuing into 2025 is those unique collaborations. And this is the latest. This is the limited edition Fiat 500 electric Giorgio Armani. Hi guys, I'm Tish and welcome back to my channel Auto Social. In today's video, I'm going to tell you everything that differs from the Giorgio Armani version to the standard Fiat 500 electric. And I'm going to be finding out whether this special edition is enough to entice people away from new vehicles like the Renault 5. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you like new car reviews and car content, then you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So first of all, why don't we begin by talking, of course, about what's different with this version of the Fiat 500 electric. And let's start with the wheels, because I think possibly they are the most obvious. It gets 17-inch alloy wheels, just like on the standard Fiat 500 electric, but of course, because this is the Armani edition, you get some Giorgio Armani wheel covers. These actually look like the buckle of a designer belt. They're pretty cool, although I'm not too sure whether they're just a plastic cover, and I don't want to pull them off and find out, but I would be worried about someone pinching my designer wheels. Now, in terms of the rest of the styling, it's kept pretty simple. It pretty much looks like a standard Fiat 500 electric, and that's no bad thing because you've got those cutesy front lights and you've also got that grille at the bottom there. It's a pretty good looking car, although looking slightly old in its styling as it's been out for a while now. You do get two unique colour options for the Giorgio Armani edition, however. One of them is a greeny blue, of which the colour I cannot pronounce, but I'll put it on the screen. And this possibly has the worst colour name I've ever heard, especially for a designer car. This is called ceramic greige, and that's a combination of grey and beige. How very dull and not particularly designer. But there is some cool designer elements on the interior, so let's check them out. Okay, so in here is where we start to pick up a few more Giorgio Armani little Easter eggs. It has a unique wooden effect dash. It's almost in this cube design. I think this looks a little bit like a speaker, and I quite like the fact that it's got that wood design but isn't actual wood. You've also got the Giorgio Armani signature, which just is on this lovely piece of almost dark chrome that matches with the exterior. These seats, these are lovely as well. So these are synthetic leather, finished in this light grey. You've got an armrest as well, which is wrapped in it. You've got the stitching in the same colour, but then you've got the chevron stitching down the centre. And of course, you've got the embossed Giorgio Armani kind of logo on these headrests. They look really nice, actually. I think these are really cool. All versions of this car do get a sunroof. It doesn't open, but you've got a manual blind to be able to just cover it up. And they all do get the same infotainment system you get with the Fiat 500, but they all come with a Mark Leveson sound system. And they also get their unique own tunes for turning on the vehicle. And also as you turn it back off. which is quite nice. It's slightly different, still pretty creepy actually, but just a little bit of a change. Now, what is weird about this car is I'm never going to be able to capture it on camera, but as you pull away, it does also just really faintly play a little bit of classical music, which is almost makes you sound like you're going crazy. I always think I've got the radio station on, but I'm pretty sure it is actually the car. Either that or there is something massively wrong with me. Now, I'm going to turn it back on, and we're just going to talk about the general features of the Fiat 500 electric. So you get a touchscreen. Now this gets Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is wireless, which I'm quite pleased about. What I'm not so pleased about, however, is the fact that it's a USB instead of a USB-C, which I know a lot of people don't carry nowadays. Luckily, I've got this really cool one which has a USB and a USB-C. You can kind of switch it between it. So that's pretty useless really nowadays. Nowadays, everything is USB-C. You've got a nice bit of like cityscape detailing, and you've got wireless charging in this center console, which is pretty good actually. And then I really like as well, inside these door handles, it just says made in Torino, because this car is made in Turin, which is nice. You've got buttons to be able to open the doors, which you get used to quickly. You think is weird to start with, but then you quite like it. You have got a manual override as well, so don't worry about if the electrics go wrong. You've got this 2-spoke leather wrapped steering wheel. This is really nice. You've got physical buttons on there, although they are gloss black, so they get a bit sticky, and that's the same as the climate control functions. You've got single climate control, so just one zone, which isn't a problem in a vehicle of this size, and that all works pretty well. You've just got like piano keys, which are quite nice. And then you've got your drive mode buttons, which are also on this center console, which once again, at first seems a little bit weird, but then you get used to it. In this center console here, you've got a couple of buttons. And I will say you have also got a pop-out cup holder, which I think is brilliant, because the other cup holder is a right nuisance. It's all the way in there, and if you've got a cup, like me, I always have a coffee, and if you try and drop it into there, that's going to end in tears. So it's quite cool that it's got this little pop-out one. Let's pop that back. You've got the handbrake here, and you've also got your E-mode button. So this is where you can switch between 3 different drive modes: normal, range and Sherpa. And each one just gives you a little bit less power. Sherpa will actually limit you to about 50 miles per hour. So if you want to get the full amount of that 150 miles, then if you can, use the Sherpa, but it's not very nice to use because it really limits the power. And then you've got your volume scroller in the center here. What I will say is it can be a little bit confusing, but if you're got a Fiat 500 electric, you may not even know this, but actually behind the steering wheel, you've got volume controls. Behind this slider, you've got a USB and a USB-C, although they're just for charging, so you can't connect your Apple CarPlay using the USB-C. You've got a little bit of storage, and you've also got a 12-volt charger as well. I actually think it's a nice setup. The Fiat 500 electric has pretty much everything you should want and need. Now, just to quickly talk about the rear and boot space, I'm not going to go into full detail because they are exactly the same as the standard car, and this has been out for a while. So if you want to see a review of me sitting in the back and talking about the boot, then you can watch that somewhere up on the screen. Rear space is of course only limited to 2 people back there, but you do have ISO 6 fitments on both of the rear seats and also on this passenger seat as well. So if you wanted to, you could fit 3 child seats. I probably wouldn't recommend that you do that. You've also got a cup holder in the middle there, which is quite handy in a vehicle of this size. Boot space is 185 litres, which is very small, but then again, what would you expect on a vehicle like this? Both battery and power outputs remain the same. That means you get 117 brake horsepower and you get about 150 miles of range, depending on how carefully you're driving and how cold the weather is. Although not that much has changed, let's get it out on the road and find out whether it's still a fun car to drive. Some of you which have been around on the channel for a little while may remember that I actually had a Fiat 500 electric for, I think it was about a month, maybe just over. And I sort of fell in love with the little Fiat 500 electric. I found it really endearing and just a good little car. The thing with the Fiat 500 electric is it shouldn't be your only car, or it shouldn't especially be your only electric car. So that means it's really perfect for shorter journeys. But ultimately, if you need to do anything more than shorter journeys, then it starts to become a little bit painful to spend time with the Fiat 500 electric, because it just doesn't have the battery to be able to back up needing this car as your only car, unless really you are doing only short mileage ever, which people like my nan, she'd be absolutely fine, because I think she does 140 miles in a whole year. So having that 140 miles range is not too much of an issue. But for many of us, it starts to really eat away at the range every single time you get in it, and it's a bit disappointing to get in after you've not long charged it and the range has dropped right back down again. But that's just this thing with these cars with a lower amount of range. You can't expect big things from them. But I think that's the biggest issue that faces the Fiat 500 nowadays, because over a year ago, when I spent time with the Fiat 500 electric, there wasn't an enormous amount of competition when it comes to this car, especially with small cars. There wasn't a lot of small electric cars on the market, and that meant that this car was extra endearing. Of course, the big problem with this car now is that it really has some tough competition, and that tough competition comes in the form of the Renault 5. The Renault 5 is an incredibly good car with a lot more range and a lot more power than this car can offer, and it really starts to show it up. And even Stellantis's own new brand, Leap Motor, they have the T03. That car is half of what one of these costs, and yet it does around a similar amount of mileage. So really nowadays the Fiat 500 electric has started to lose a tiny bit of its sparkle. I do think it still has quite a lot of draw though, because it has all of that personality that I know that a lot of people love, and it still has a ton of personality when you drive it as well. The steering is really, really light. Of course, it's set up for city driving, and you actually have a really high driving position. There's a reason why so many people love to drive Fiat 500s, and that's because they're so easy to drive. You sit up really high, you've got a great view, it's nice and tiny, so it means manoeuvring it around could not be easier. There's lots of things to appreciate about this car. The problem is there's lots of things to appreciate about other cars nowadays, and this car just isn't as competitive as it was when it was first released. So whilst the Armani edition of this car is fun and exciting, it's not any more compelling than it previously was. It still has the same lukewarm stats that it previously had. But what the Armani edition does is it just brings an added amount of personality, and that is something that the Fiat 500 has always been so good at doing. I've really enjoyed my time with this car. I always do enjoy my time with Fiat 500 electrics. Of course, it is essential with these cars that you do have home charging, because if you don't, you're really going to feel the sting from having to charge this all the time on those public chargers. But if you do have a charger at home, you don't go too far, and you want something which is a bit of fun, then actually I think the Armani version of this car could just be the car for you. But let me know, what do you think of this limited edition Fiat 500 electric? Pop it in the comments down below. I really hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. Until next time guys, see you later.